Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Honeya going through and doing the movie notes for the class that is not in present today. So what we have is we're going to be talking about the inspection, the home inspection over the course of the next 2 days. So the question I have for y'all is why do we inspect things? This is very important. So I want to make sure that you guys know what we got going on for today. So just kind of write a little bit about why you think we inspect things. You guys have a set of note questions, not necessarily notes today. So the inspection, this is a very important process of the home buying process. So we'll go ahead and get started. So in order to sell a home, it must be properly inspected. A home cannot go through the process of being sold unless the inspection happens. So you want to make sure that you make that happen when you are going through the process of selling a home. Now, who pays for the inspection? Now, typically it is the seller. The seller typically goes through and pays for the inspection and makes sure that the home goes through in that process. However, there are instances, depending on the market, where the buyer will go through and hire out the inspector as well. But typically, the seller, typically does it, and typically this costs an average of around $315. Can be a lot more depending on how much the inspector typically charges. Now, what does the inspector typically do? They typically go through the home and visually inspects everything, making sure that it works. So they're going to be looking at stuff, checking for mold, checking for broken things, looking. That is the key phrase. They're going to visually inspect everything. And this procedure is non-invasive, meaning that they're not going to be ripping apart walls and gutting the house to try to find every little thing that is wrong. It is just a visual thing. And then they're going to be testing the working areas that they can get to. So, for example, if they want to test the water, they're going to be cutting faucets off and on to make sure that they're working. They're going to be testing the lights, so they're going to be flipping the switches off and on to make sure that that's working. They're going to be testing outlets, so they're going to be plugging voltage. They're going to be plugging voltage testers in to make sure that is working. So this is all of what an inspector actually does. So then you have the inspector reports. So typically they will provide an inspection report, and this thing is extremely lengthy. We're looking at 30 pages. It is huge. It can be very, very daunting, but oftentimes if you have a good inspector, they'll be willing to break it down and show you and explain to you in simple terms what this means. So the inspector will mention issues with the house that the clients should fix before selling. So that is a very important thing. So these types of things need to be mentioned. So that way, when the process goes through with selling, that the client is selling the home in its best regards, and then also that can also come back to look into as a piece of bargaining. So when choosing inspector, you want to make sure that you shop around. Look at reviews and look at recommendations, and then make sure that your inspector is solid and make sure you're getting someone with good reviews. So it's very, very important. Today, as a class activity, you are going to do a Google search on home inspectors in the Rock Hill areas. You're going to pick 3 inspectors. Typically, inspectors will work for a company, but you are going to pick 3 inspectors and write down the following for each: the name of the company, or if they work by themselves, the name of the inspector, any credentials or certifications, professional organizations that they hold or they are part of, a copy of 2 testimonials. So you may have to look at a Google review or something like that. Any of their former clients or buildings that they have inspected, and then browse their website. See if anything stands out to you, and then just a simple yes or no. Would you pick this inspector? Not if it's the best one, but just would you pick them in general. And then finally, after you've gotten everything from these 3 clients, or correction, 3 inspectors, you're going to pick one and then explain why. So that is going to be your assignment for the next